Now moving on to the demo. The entire demo SDWAN security I have put in the UCS M2C Series 210 box. It's running ESXi 6.7 with one headquarters up in the top that you see and down on the bottom with two enterprise branches. These routers and the hosts behind these routers, one Linux host behind each router and one Windows host behind each router, talk to each other using the MPLS router. And if they need to go to the internet, there is direct internet access breakout from each of these branches, and they go to this iNet router and go out to the internet. The only piece of hardware physical that exists in this topology is the Google Fiber box. Now these two routers, MPLS and iNet, are running traditional iOS XE images. These three routers at the headquarters and the two branches are running the iOS XE SD-WAN image. Now let us take a look at vManage dashboard. This is vManage dashboard where we have included three new widgets, one for firewall, one for IPS, and another one for URL filtering. Under the configuration gearbox, we've added a brand new section for security. Under security, you could add a new security policy completely based on the intention, the use cases that we went over. It is purely based on intent-based networking. If you choose the compliance use case or the guest access use case, direct cloud access use case, or the direct internet access use case, the appropriate features will be configured as part of the workflow. If none of that applies to you, you could always pick the custom option and proceed with configuring the features a la carte. Let's take a look at the security policy that I've configured here. Now, as far as the firewall is concerned, I have allowed the inside hosts to go to the outside, and I implemented 4 rules: HTTP, HTTPS, DNS, and ICMP. Let's take a look at the intrusion prevention screen. It is a very slick looking UI. The only 2 mandatory fields that we need to fill out is what signature set do you want to implement. The difference between the 3 is the number of signatures that are enabled by default. Security will have the most signatures enabled by default. And tell us whether you want IPS in the protection mode or detection mode. Protection will be in line. Should a signature get fired, the packets will be dropped. The detection mode, however, you can see what is going on, but the packets will not be dropped should a signature get fired. Anything else that's not mandatory to run this feature, you will find that under the advanced option, signature whitelisting, as well as changing the alert log level. And once this piece is configured, we show you a preview of what you just did at down in the bottom half. And the last and final thing is to apply that to the VPNs. Which VPNs do you want to be subjected to IPS or IDS? The URL filtering. This also is a very slick looking UI. The only 2 mandatory fields that require input are the web categories, whether you want this blocked or allowed, and what categories do you want blocked. By simply choosing a down arrow, we pre-populate 82 different categories. You simply need to add a checkbox and the counter up on the top increments, and these categories get added to the tail end of the list that you already have. Or if you want to search for financial related categories, You could just simply type them, uppercase or lowercase doesn't matter, and you can simply check that category for it to be added in the end. And also tell us what web reputation score would you like to allow. Do you want the users to go only to trustworthy websites, or very low risk websites, or moderate and above websites? I would never want our users to be going to suspicious or any high risk websites at all. Anything that's not mandatory for the feature is under the advanced option. We provide options for whitelisting URLs, blacklisting URLs, which get processed first before the categories get processed. So you could allow a good category, but then some of the websites belonging to the category that you allowed will be dropped or could be dropped because they belong to suspicious or high risk reputation score. Here's the custom blocked content page that you could serve to the users should they browse to a category that is not allowed. This has a character limitation of 256 characters. If this isn't enough, then we could always redirect the users to a completely different page and capture the block page content in that separate page. And here are some of the alerts that can be enabled that could be sent to an external log collector server. And for DNS security, let's go ahead and edit that. Here, as you see here, the umbrella registration status, it already shows configured. The reason for it to show configured is that once umbrella subscription has been purchased, once you log into the umbrella portal, you could look up on the very top, you will see an API token. This API token is a long string of numbers that needs to be simply copied and pasted one time on the vManage settings screen, as you see here. Once this is done, vManage will take the API token and provision the security policy on all of the routers, as you see here. Now it is the same API token that it has grabbed from the settings section that you configured. Again, selected VPNs. You can pick and choose your custom VPN, redirect the DNS request to Umbrella, and redirect other VPN DNS packets to a custom DNS server. It could be any DNS server provided by the ISP or Google DNS or 4222. Anything that is not mandatory for this field, again, will be available under the advanced. An option to disable encryption. Encryption is enabled by default. We give you an option to disable encryption, encrypting DNS packets and sending to the Umbrella cloud, because we add the inside private IP address of the client and the device identity in the DNS packet, and we encrypt that with the proprietary DNS crypt protocol and send it to the cloud. We go under reporting and look for activity search. We will see that if we look for just the blocked content, you will see that the routers in my topology have been blocking access to certain categories: games, gambling, auction sites, and other websites that we have blocked for the internal IP address in the topology to the external web service IP address, and these are the blocked ones. If you look at under the devices that are registered, you will see that we have the CSRs, the Cary CSR, the Durham CSR, and the Raleigh CSR registered on Umbrella portals. Now we're done with the security policy and moving on to policy summary. Here is where for the container-based application, for the events and alerts to be collected at a central log server, we could provide an IP address for the log server and also tell which VPN that log server is hanging off of. Another option that we provide is the failure mode. Close or open. Open is the default behavior, meaning if something were to happen to the engine that's running within the router's container, what do we do with the packets? We let them go through. The router will process them and send the packets out without the packets being inspected. But if that's not the intention, we can switch that to closed, meaning if something were to happen to the engine running within the router's container, the router will black hole traffic until the services come back up. Now that we're done with security policy, here is how to tie the security policy to the device template. In our case, all three routers are running CSR 1000V model. So each device, when you create a feature template, has to belong to a particular platform that is supported. So in our case, we are running CSR 1000V. So our template is deployed to three devices. So it is this template where we need to attach the security policy that we just configured. And if you scroll down all the way, here is the security policy that we just configured. There could be other security policies as well. You could create security policies based on use cases. You could create security policies for different platforms. It's up to the needs and requirements. And this needs to be chosen for the container profile. But before we do this, there's one manual item that needs to be done, which is uploading the image for the container application. That is done under the software repository section. If you switch to the software repository section here and go to the virtual images, this image, which will also be available on CCO end of November, needs to be uploaded using the local computer. So once the image is uploaded into vManage, it uses that image and provisions the container, installs the application, and runs those services for us. And once this is done and deployed to all of the devices, our dashboard will start populating data. I have some scripts running on these Linux hosts that are behind these edge devices that are constantly sending traffic that the firewall builds firewall sessions for, that we can look. These could be toggled and looked for inspected versus dropped packets. We could switch from 24 hours to 1 hour. So for the last 1 hour, the entire enterprise, the three routers, contributed to that many dropped packets. So at any point, you can click on it, get details about the three routers that have dropped packets. Further, we could click on this particular router and it will show you for what reasons the firewall dropped those packets. For the intrusion prevention, this could be toggled between severity as well as by count. For severity, the high severity is colored in red, while the medium severity is colored in blue. So for the last 1 hour, these two signatures have been triggered that many times in the entire enterprise. And if we click on this one particular signature, this shows us the details about all of the sources and the destinations they went to and the VPN that they belong to and the number of times these signatures were triggered. And you can switch that between 1 hour or 3 hours. This widget is the URL filtering widget. You could toggle this between blocked versus allowed. Again, you can switch this to the last 1 hour view, or 3 hours, or 6 hours. We're not going to populate all 82 categories here, but we will populate the categories for which the devices saw traffic. Let's look at one of the categories here, the real estate category. Switch to the business and economy instead. The 3 routers have processed that many sessions for that particular category the past hour. That's about the overall dashboard. Now I'm going to show you the device specific dashboard. So come under the monitor and go to the network and pick one of the 3 routers. Let's pick the Carry CSR, for example. Under the security monitoring, we've added firewall, intrusion prevention, URL filtering, as well as umbrella redirection. On the firewall section, we provide a little bit more drilling down than we do on the overall dashboard. You can click on the policy that we've applied, and it will show you the rules that we configured, one for HTTP, HTTPS, DNS, and ICMP. Anything that's not allowed will be caught in the class default and be dropped. If you click on this further down, we will show you the protocols that we have allowed as part of this particular rule. Intrusion prevention, again, this could be toggled between severity and count, and down below we show you the signatures that were triggered and the signature ID, as well as whether the signature was a critical signature or a medium alert signature. The legend captures that with the color coordination as well. For URL filtering, we could toggle between blocked versus allowed, and we show you all of the categories and the number of sessions that each category has processed on this particular router. We could toggle this between 1 hour, 3 hours, 6 hours. As much space as vManage has to store all of the information that it receives from all of the devices in the entire enterprise. For umbrella redirection, we show you that this device has been successfully registered to Umbrella Portal, Carry CSR, and the VPN is VPN1. Once you go under the deployments and network devices, you will see that our device has been successfully registered here with the default policy like I showed earlier. And we do have a local domain bypass configured for domains completely internal to the enterprise, for which we do not have to redirect the DNS packets to Umbrella Cloud. These DNS packets that are destined to the local domains will be left untouched. For the DNS redirected packets, we give you a breakdown of the time and date of the day and the number of packets that we have redirected to Umbrella Cloud.